paper right here. We're not going to go through this paper like in detail. But this paper, I put it together just to show you what I keep in mind when I'm studying the laws of health in the Bible. That way I can just have a parallel in my mind. But let's quickly look at it. So I chose like 7 of the most basic principles of health, and I put them there in parallel. And everything has a church parallel. I put it that way just in the common language, right? But we could say a spiritual application, right? Because God created this principle, and we name them exercise and breathing, all these other things down here on earth. But these are not just something that, exercise is just for the body. No, these are heavenly principles of function. The trees need some type of activity, we could say, quote unquote, in order to be able to get stronger. And God provides the wind to shake that tree left and right to be able to strengthen that tree. And so does the human body. And in the spiritual sense, God has it right there, and that is prayer. You know, that is really I'm talking about exercise and breathing at the same time. Exercise, that is evangelism for the church. I was talking about exercise the whole time. Anyway, so for breathing, then that is prayer, and so on and so forth. It goes down. You notice what it says, the 7th one, rest, sleep, and then it says Sabbath and righteousness by faith experience. And I will explain myself. That is because when you finally understand that you don't need to work to be saved, you rest. You say, well, fine, okay, I rest from my labors. That's what God wants us to do. He wants us to rest from our labors. And these parallels, once you understand it, this is why I understand it, friends. I have a passion for these things. Why? Because every time I need counsel how to go about a church that is dead. I'm given a church that is in Arkansas. There is one right here. They assigned me to right next to the college. A church that is, you could say, weak. Okay? So how would I approach the church in seeking for revival if I'm just a young minister in the Lord, you know? So how do I approach it? I don't have no experience to say, I've tried this right here, it failed. I've tried this right here, it worked. I don't have that much to look back to as experience, personal experience. Yes, I can look to people's experience. I can counsel with people. But why always counsel with people when we can counsel with the Lord directly? And the Lord, trust me, wants us to have a multitude of counsel. But He wants us to go to Him. So what am I trying to say? That when I want to look at the health of a church, I focus on the body. I focus on the body. What can I see on the structure that I already know that I can actually apply in the church and see it triumphing? You know, time and time again, you see Ellen White says things like, you know, evangelism, when you do for others, you're doing for yourself. So if you want to overcome vices, Ellen White says one of the main things you want to do is be active, not alone. That's just one thing, because prayer and all these other things have its proper place. You know, and that's primary right there, actually, when we're talking about prayer. But isn't that exactly what the exercise does for the body? When you exercise, you're losing the toxins and everything like that is gone away, and you're gaining muscles and all these things. So when you evangelize, you gain strength in the church. So for a church that's weak, you want to take that church out in evangelism. This is a parallel. Like I said, I'm not going through this in depth as I would like to, but in the back of it, I have my proofs for why I call them what I call them, okay? So I didn't invent them. It's actually all talked about. Some are spirit prophecy, some are biblical verses. These are heavenly principles. So you can keep those and study them out. Study them out. Like, draw the parallel for yourself. And this is only a little bit, friends. You can find a lot. For example, when you start asking questions, Ellen White calls, for example, the health message the right hand of the body. What effect does that have when you start to try to understand it? You know, the ministers are really the heart of the church. They're the one that pumps the blood of Jesus Christ throughout the whole body, spiritually speaking. So when you go with these analogies, it helps you to understand both how to revive a church and how to revive a body with God's grace. That's why I believe these things is powerful, because you're getting 2 things done by doing one thing alone, you know? So it's amazing. But today I intended us to focus more on this paper right here, okay? On this paper right here. This is where we're going to focus. It's front and back, but there's a lot more here. There's a lot here we can say, more than we can bear in the time that we have, okay? Powerful stuff, friends, okay? And I have more spirit prophecy quotes I could send to you guys, like especially because this is my exercise. I have compilations on my phone I can text to you guys if anybody wants extra quotes that talks about these things, okay? So focus on that one paper for me, please. And let's start. So, exercise. Let's go to the book of Timothy, right? We're going to go to the book of Timothy. It's right there on your thing before we even read it. And take your notes on side and everything that you can right there. 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 6 to 8, right? Paul was a man that always used analogies. Always used analogies. And here, by the way, I printed the whole article there on, so you have 4 people. The whole article. Keep this aside with that one right there. And then this is really for later, actually. You can just check it later. It's an article from Times, okay? It's an article from Times. Everybody got one? Pedro, I'll put your paper right here. I don't know if you want it back there. Oh, okay. I'll just put it right here for you. Okay. So that's an article. I'll just give it to you so you can have it with you. But I just took that one passage that I need. It's already there. So let's read it from here, actually. 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 6 to 8. It says, no, I can't do that. I'm going to go to my Bible because I want to point certain things out. Okay? But you have it here. You can follow me, please. 1 Timothy, okay? 1 Timothy chapter 4. I'm gonna start briefly with verse 1 and I'm going to keep going down. When I get to verse 6, I'll start to emphasize deeper, okay? So here's Paul trying to tell Timothy, here in the church there is rising some social problems and some stuff that is pertaining to eating and drinking. But I have a way that you can approach these things, right? So I'm gonna counsel you. I'm going to show you how to revive this church. I'm going to show you how to be a good minister. But what language does Paul use? This is what is amazing. He chose to use the language of anatomy and physiology, you could say, or the needs of the body. And then that's the analogy he used to show Timothy how does he go about reviving a church. Very powerful, friends. So I'm going to start with verse 1. Notice he says, now the Spirit speaketh expressly, that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. So heresies are entering the church, right? And then in verse 2 it says, speaking lies in hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry and commanding to abstain from meats. So 2 issues. One is marriage, the other one is food. So these are actually quite big issues in the church all throughout the world, you know. So how do you approach it if you don't know the Lord's way of going about it? You know. But here's Paul showing Timothy, since he's talking about these things, he kept the language, but yet gave a spiritual message. Watch it come very subtle. You really have to pay attention. So after he said all of that, right? And then he said, you know, everything is pure you with prayer and all of these things. And then he says in verse 6, if thou put in remembrance of these things, if thou put the brethren in remembrance of these things, thou shalt be a good, what is the word? Minister. Now, when we think about the word minister, what do we think about? A pastor and a main leader, right? And all of that. But I want to let you know, actually, that in the Bible, that's not really the definition. Quite interesting, but that's not the definition. Do you remember John chapter 2? The marriage in Cana. And then there was no more wine. Mary told who to go and grab the water and bring it to Jesus? The servants. The same word servants there is the word here in Timothy. So in other words, minister is one that serves the needs of others. That's minister. So what Paul is telling Timothy, you will be a good servant. But much more than a good servant, another connection to this word is garçon in French. Have you guys heard that expression before? Garçon are like what do you call them in English again? The waiter. That's the connection here. You can go to concordance and prove these things. Don't take me for my word. I'm only a human. But the powerful thing is Paul is calling Timothy a waiter. So what does a waiter do? You go and serve water and water and food. Right? I mean, drink and food, like I said, right? They sing a lot more than, they serve a lot more than water. Okay. So then watch what he said. He keeps that language going all throughout. Marriage, foods, right? And then now you are a good waiter. How? Of Jesus Christ. what is the next word coming up? Nourished up. Can you literally be nourished with the Bible? Listen to my question. Literally be nourished with the Bible. If you eat these pages, would you be nourished? I'm afraid you might have indigestion. Okay? They don't necessarily have any vitamins. So what is Paul using? He's using a physical language to explain a spiritual message. So notice, you are a waiter, but you cannot be a waiter that only feed people. You yourself got to be fed the right way. So then he says, he continues to go, as he's saying there, he says like this. Nourished up in the what?
The word.
In the words of faith of?
Good doctrine.
Good doctrine. So what is Paul putting before Timothy as food?
The word.
The word and?
Good doctrine.
Good doctrines. So notice he's not only saying food, but good food. Okay? So this is the mentality of Paul. Obviously he understands nutrition. The man understands nutrition. So as he's going forward, he says, but refuse. What do you refuse? Profane. So you don't want to eat that which is good, but you refuse that which is bad, right? But what is more powerful? What does he say next? After you eat the good food and refuse that which is bad, what do you do?
Exercise yourself rather unto godliness.
Why? For bodily exercise. He's talking physical, friends. For bodily exercise profited little. Some people say, you see? No. Bodily exercise profited little. And I bring them another verse that Jesus says, you know what? Work not for food. Work not for meat. You know, those are temporal things. So you don't need food. You don't need exercise. You don't need food either. Nobody will agree with that one. I forget exactly what the verse says, but same expression is what I'm trying to say, is used towards food. So what Paul is saying, in the light of eternity, body exercise is but a small thing. In the light of godliness, bodily exercise is but a small thing. That's what he's saying. But the sequence he presents is this. Eat that which is good, refuse that which is bad, and go ahead and exercise. Oh, friends, I love this. I love this. Now go up to what Times say. This is, Signs of the Times. Oh, Lord. New York Times. This is not Signs of the Times. New York Times, this is what they say, friends. I love when I find this type of passages from Science. Over the years, researchers have found that a post-meal walk as short as 15 minutes can in fact help with digestion and improve blood sugar levels. In one study in 2008, German researchers looked at what happened when people ate a large meal and then consumed either an espresso or an alcoholic digestive, like brandy or flavored liquor. These are supposed to be good for digestion, friends. The world can go, let me not use any adjectives. Or walked at a slow pace on a treadmill. Walking, they found, sped the rate at which food moved through the stomach. The beverages had no effect. I love it because I learned this. By the way, and you know what is so powerful about these? The most powerful about these, friends, for me personally, it's because I didn't find the quote in Times first in order to come to Timothy. I found Timothy first. And then I said, Lord, this can't be true, Lord. It can't be true what you're showing me, Lord. This is too good to be true. I'm going to go to Science right now. And then I go to Google. Could it be that this is what it's saying? Like those things I showed you about water? I didn't go to Google first. I went to the Bible. I said, Lord, I want to be outside of every source. I want you to show it to me in your word. And when I started to see it in the Bible, it was amazing. And I was like, no. I can't be seeing what I'm seeing right now. And then I go outside of the Bible. I see it in Science. I'm like, oh man, this is powerful. But sadly, that the world is more prone to believe Times than they are to believe Timothy. It's right there. So what Paul is saying, eat that which is good, refuse that which is bad, and go ahead and exercise. Now, when we read quotes like this, we say, oh, you know, Ellen White is just a counsel. Do you see that quote right down there? EGW, exercise will aid. Yeah. What does it say? Somebody read it for me, please, friends. Can somebody read it for me, please?
Exercise will aid the work of digestion. To walk out after a meal, hold the head erect, put back the shoulders, and exercise moderately will be a great benefit. The mind will be diverted from self to the beauties of nature. The less the attention is called to the stomach after a meal, the better.
Forget the treadmill that Times is suggesting. You have a treadmill right here. The garden. The walking in nature. That's what we believe as a people, right? But, friends, do I need a spirit of prophecy to prove to you that principle right here? Were you convinced before spirit of prophecy, or did you need to read this to be convinced? What is she doing? She's amplifying the truth that's already there. There's no principle that we teach that is not in the Bible. I'm convinced. I'm convinced there's no truth that we teach that is not in the Bible. Friends, this is so powerful to me. But you know what is yet more powerful? So now you catch the picture, right? But as the picture unfolds, right? And you start seeing the benefits. Why? Because that same thing that evangelism does to the church, exercise does it to the body. Or you can say it backwards. Whatever exercise does to the body, evangelism does to the church. But guess what? Do you believe that is a problem? That we eat and then sit after? Spiritually speaking? So do you think that church is going to grow? Because I know that this principle is so in the body, I can walk as a brand new pastor somewhere and I see that issue. I was like, no, this is wrong. But how would I be able to tell? Because I have a pattern. But for a young pastor that have no idea and these things are not taught everywhere, then he will be lost. It will take him years of struggling to be able to see something. But God has told me that the things that we do not know, the Spirit reveals unto us. You don't have to go through struggle to learn everything. You can see it. You can have foresight of things because it is God working in you. Not everything. God permits you to go through certain struggles to learn and all of that. But some things that we struggle to learn shouldn't have been so. It could have been a much easier process. Otherwise, it says the work that the church was supposed to do in times of peace, she's going to have to do it in times of difficulties, not adversity. I mean, we saw it last Saturday. So obviously, that was not for her to do in adversity. But because of neglect, now we have to do it through adversity and difficulties. So there are things that God wants us to learn. And once we learn these things, friends, a doctor can become an evangelist. Do you see that? A doctor can become an evangelist. Why? Because God that made the structure of the body is the same God that made the structure of the church. He put them together the same exact way. It's so powerful, friends. So powerful. Okay, for tonight, you're just arriving here. Let me give you some papers here. Okay.
He's sharing.
You sharing? You sure you got it? Okay, good. All right. So, now that we have established that point, right? I want you to go up to 1 Timothy chapter 2. You see it there? Chapter 2, verse 10. We're going up. It's right there on the same page. I just jumped to Ellen White first because I wanted to make a point right away before I confused you. You see in verse 7 actually, before I get to 1 Timothy chapter 2, do you see chapter 4 right there in verse 7? Refuse profane old wives' fables, but exercise thyself rather to godliness. So what is the exercise of the church? It's right there. Godliness. Godliness. That's what Paul is saying. The exercise of the church is performing godliness. But the question is, what is godliness? Then that's the verse that follows. But which becometh woman professing godliness with good works. So what is it? After all, is doing all the good works that God has given the church to do, whether it is evangelism in the form of meetings or evangelism in the form of helping people, just evangelism in general, okay? That is the exercise of the church. That's why I call it the exercise of the church. It's not because I thought, wow, what an amazing thing. It could be a parallel. No, it's there written. I'm only saying, I'm only repeating, which is what the Lord already have said. So the godliness, the good works, is the exercise of the church. Now, what does it say in Luke chapter 13, verse 33? Are we inventing this thing? No. I mean, I'm skipping stuff. Philippians 2:16. Paul compares running with preaching the word. So I did not invent these things. So notice that. So Paul is comparing preaching the word with running. And then the next verse, Jesus compares walk with evangelism. Do you see them? Is that clear to you? And let's read one of them. Paul says, holding forth the word of life, that I may rejoice in the day of Christ, that I have not run in vain, neither labor in vain. I could be left with just the Bible. I'll smile at the people. And I'll present to them what the Lord says about exercise, friends. When you eat, get up and walk. But guess what? In this church, when you study, get up and evangelize. It's the same effect that one has that the other has. But when we study disconnected, what does Ellen White say? The greatest evil come upon the church. The greatest evil. You know one of the most aggravated things that Kellogg's had to go through? That the leaders wouldn't accept the health message. And it bothered him so much. It annoyed him so much. I'm not saying we should go ahead and be annoyed and mad at people, but he annoyed the man so much. Because the leaders, he noticed, were those that had a hard time accepting the messages. But do you believe that if a leader knows the truth presented to him like this in every seminary, that it might make a difference? If it's presented to you, your belief of the physical nature might trigger your spiritual beliefs, then it might have changed something. And I'm not claiming to have something that no one else has. It's written in the Word. I haven't put one note from day one right there yet. So Jesus says, nevertheless, I must walk today and tomorrow and the day following, for it cannot be that a prophet perish out of Jerusalem. So that's all over, the symbolism. So now we're going to quit symbolism. And we're going to ask ourselves questions. I don't know if I have everything here. This thing looks too short for me. Looks like probably I'm missing something. But I want you to see something here. Could it be that with understanding these parallels, we might understand God's idea of exercise a little deeper? Notice that he talks about nutrition followed by exercise. Eat and then walk. We notice that. Time's right here saying it to us. Now, here is something. What is the best exercise? Isn't that a good question? Could it be that the Bible at least gives us the principle? But the issue is sometimes we read and we don't look at the principle. That's where I want to look, friends. What is the principle of this verse? For example, what is the principle of 1 Timothy 4? Eat good, reject bad, and activity. That's what he's saying. But it's a lot of words there to be able to picture these things. But that's all Paul is saying. Eat good, refuse the bad, and enter into activity. Can you apply that everywhere and anywhere? You know what somebody said about airplane? A man was asked, what is the most dangerous thing about this airplane? Like, what is the most dangerous time? Landing, taking off? Somebody has smiled. They probably heard this analogy. The person said, oh, when it's actually stopped. Because then it rusts. And then you cannot work it anymore. That's the most dangerous time for an airplane, when it sits there. You can apply this on machines, you can apply this on trees, you can apply this on people, you can apply this on church, anywhere. After consuming that which is good, refusing that which is bad, you must enter activity. It's just everything, friends. And the machines of the world today, most of them are invented after the manner of the human body. A lot of them. Some are mimicking birds. For example, airplane is one of them. And God says in Job, look to the eagles. You know, there's a lot of wisdom in there. And you know that, I'm getting carried away here, but I'm going to say this thing. You know that the airplane companies, they made the wings of the airplane like with a lot of studies. There's a lot of scientific studies that needs to be done just to make that little strip going across like this. The length, the shapes, the angles, all of that. At a certain time, they're starting to notice in the eagles, the wing doesn't just go straight, but at the tip of the wing, there's like at least a few feathers that go up. And they notice that these things could glide nicely because of the way the air goes through those feathers. So it affects in the way they fly, and they go back to their airplane. They say, no, we got to add these little feathers in the tape, you know? Quote unquote. And then that's when are you familiar with those airplanes now that at the tip of the wing, a little piece goes up? That's where it came from, friends. From the eagles. It's just so amazing that at the end of the day, we all go back to Genesis. You know, but when it comes to exercise, we start to say, no, it's good to kind of, body build, and you do this, and you do that, weightlifting and whatnot. Somebody says, no, agriculture is the best one, walking is the best exercise. Many doctors say all these things, so which one is the best? Which one is the best, friend? Good question. So this is what I have for you today. I'm going to talk about bodybuilding for a second, but I want you to understand, weightlifting and bodybuilding are two different things, okay? Because this right here could be weightlifting for me, right? This is weightlifting, literally. This is weightlifting, but is it bodybuilding? No, definitely not. It's just very lightweight too, but yeah, that's weightlifting. But bodybuilding are people that put attention in lifting lots of weight to be able to get their body. Like they really focus on getting their form on point. Watch this. Right here, New York Times. Let's read it. Very powerful, friends. I don't know if I should try to say their name. Can somebody here say their name better than I can? Schwarzenegger. Thank you so much. Continue to read. Thank you. Read it, please.
Schwarzenegger argues that bodybuilding is a sport, but he also considers himself a sculptor of the human body, using exercise instead of clay to mold it into the desired form.
So remember, what is the exercise of the church?
Evangelism.
Evangelism, or the word that Paul uses what?
Godliness.
Godliness. Think about that as you read these things, okay? I want you to please pay attention, friends. Oh, God is so powerful. So bodybuilding focus on what?
The body outside.
The body,
Physical.
the outside, the physical, the outward appearance. That's what they focus on, right? And then here they say the primary focus of bodybuilding is the form. I think it's very blasphemic. I don't know what was in the mind, but I don't know. Maybe I'm going too far to say instead of clay. Do you see the connection?
Yeah.
Instead of the way God made it with clay, let's use bodybuilding and put our own form to these things. So the focus on the form, okay? I don't think these things, I do not think these things are there by happenstance. Let's just flip the page and watch some powerful stuff. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 5 and 6, friends. Paul continued to Timothy about these things about exercise and godliness, right? He says this right here. Perverse disputings of men of corrupt minds and destitute of the truth, supposing that what? That gain is what? Godliness. This is the spiritual side. But think about it. Think about the implications. It's so powerful. From such, what do? Withdraw thyself. Keep that in mind. That expression, withdraw thyself, right? But godliness with what?
Contentment.
Contentment is great gain. The word contentment is same thing as sufficiency there. So God aims at sufficiency. But man wants to see outward gain. I don't know if you've seen the connection. Godliness is that of the church. It's the exercise of the church. So Paul is saying, many people are exercising the wrong way. They look at gaining as godliness. That's the good works of the church. But instead of focusing, let's give the people what they need. Let's teach the people, if some want to leave, as long as we give them what they need to get, don't focus on godliness. Don't focus on gaining. That was a bad one. Don't focus on gaining. Do you get the point? For example, some church exercise focus only on gaining more people, on gaining more reputation, on gaining more money for the pastor even. Did you know that? Because once you go from a pastor that does part-time job, once you baptize a certain amount of people, conference is pressured now to give you more money, to hire you for a full-time, and full-time is more money. It's an existing thing. And I'm not saying this is our church in general. That's not what I'm saying. But do they exist? A lot. Friends, it's such a pressure. So then next thing we know, instead of saying, no, let's just exercise, strengthen the members, we all stick together as a healthy body. No, that's not what you focus on. Outward appearances, Even eating and drinking and all these other things, this gain, our reputation is becoming better. And then we put on oh man, the next verse says, having it. Wow. You see what it gives us right there in the Bible? That's the parallel of these things. So why are these things important? This is the theological side of it. So when you go and teach people this truth, pull these principles here and there as much as you can. Show them that there is the greater side of these things. Because if I go, I'm a bodybuilder, right? And I only focus on form physically. When I come to the church with that same mindset, is that dangerous?
Yes.
Do you see that? Because to me, gaining is the right exercise. I just gain and put on a form. So then, when I apply myself theologically, I come with the same mindset. It's the same mind. All that is changing is the weight and the environment. But the mind, it stays there. And then next thing you know, I am going to evangelize. All I focus on is to get the numbers. If somebody baptized 5 and I baptized 2, there is a problem. Now I got to compete. And you know what they do to compete, by the way, in bodybuilding? They take drugs. Right there in the article in Times. That's not the one I printed for you, by the way. This one, it was just worthless to print it for you. It says, most people compete, and in order to do so, they just have to take drugs. For bodybuilding. Why? Because the primary focus is the form. So apparently, we see it right here. If exercise focus on form alone, it's not God's way of exercise. We see it just in the Bible. If evangelism focus on form alone, it's not God's way of exercise. So Paul says in 2 Timothy 3:5, what does he say? Having a form of godliness, but denying the what? The power thereof. From such, what do? Turn away. What did he say about the other one when he was talking about gain is not godliness?
Withdraw thyself.
Gaining and focusing on forming, Paul said, turn away from those. And yet he compares these things with exercise. Do you see the connection? That's what Paul is saying here. It's some profound physiological truth at the same time applied as spiritual or theological. That's what Paul is saying. And friends, this right here did not start at Wichita Hills. I'm not here to put Wichita Hills down, but I'm just about to tell you something. It is the purpose I'm telling you this. I started to discover this right there in front of the dorm. I told the truth before in this classroom. I would get out of sight. I actually approached a doctor. When I sit in this classroom, learning the laws of health, I was like, something is missing for me. I want to see this thing in the Bible. I want to see this thing in the Bible. And I questioned the doctor. I said, what can I do to be able to see the laws of health in the Bible? The person told me this. Go home and speak to God as if he's real. Now, what does that mean? So I went home that night. I split my Bible open. I point to the pages. I put my finger on the page like this, and I look up. I say, Lord, like out loud. This is after class and everything. Lord, I want to see it in your word. Just like that. And then I would walk back and forth. I'm just flipping pages. I don't know where to start. And then I went inside after a long time just trying to find something. I thought I found something very small, but I was like, okay, something could be behind that. And then after that, I went inside. The Lord opened the Bible right for me in 1 Timothy chapter 4. And he started to show me those principles that Ellen White teach are not invented by Ellen White. The principles of exercise are right here in the Bible. And then when I started to see that, I got so excited because he opened up the field for everything else. Because once you understand that godliness is exercise, and now you understand that good doctrine is your food, you're going to start understanding everything else. Now you know how church gains muscle. You get the idea? So that's how things go, friend. So now you know if an exercise has certain type of effect in the head or in the mind, the church that works a certain way will help their pastor, which is the head of the church, a certain way. You see what the hints I'm giving to you right now? In other words, when you start finding these connections, apply them in the church. Next thing you know, just by studying the human body, you become an evangelist.
Amen.
Of the highest order. Why? Because you're using the simplicity of God's structure to lead his church. Instead of saying, you know what, young people are not coming to the church, they're not interested in truth, I think we need the time of amusement so we can gather them up. Maybe a basketball game could gather a lot of young people. What do you think, Lucano? It could gather. Maybe a movie night. That all depends what you show, but not everybody shows creation movies, okay? Do you see the idea I'm saying? So if we do understand this principle, then why do we go to these nasty Babylonian methods? To be able to gain. No, God is saying it's so simple. You want to get somebody interested in the truth? You want somebody to apply what they learn? Hey, friends, oh man, you have no idea how overwhelmed I can get with these things. Because there's so much that is left out. We only have 15 minutes, okay? But there is a passage from Spirit of Prophecy, for example, that says, the more you teach, the more you learn. The more you walk after you eat it, the more you digest the food.
Amen.
It's the same principle. Get up and walk, your digestion is faster, and then you put that food to use through your bloodstream. You get information, get up and walk, next thing you know, you start to put it to practice because you're so immersed in that principle by sharing it with other people. So that's what God is saying here. The church and the body is one thing, pretty much. As far as structure goes. It's the same God that made it. It's the same God that made it, friends. Now, let's read. Is that clock working?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Man, I got scared for a moment. Okay, so now, watch what Paul compares evangelism to be. We notice that obviously God is saying the exercise that focuses merely on form is not the right one, right? Now, what does God compare the church to, or even evangelism to, other than exercise? Exercise where, we could say, or activity, right? But activity where?
The garden.
The garden, friends. You see the point? So God is saying, I teach my children good doctrines, I make them to refuse the bad doctrine, and then I take them to go to work in the garden. Friends, that we have no need of anybody to tell us these things. It's written in the scriptures. So it functions for the body. You eat that which is good, refuse that which is bad, and have some time in the garden. You get the point? It's so powerful. Isaiah chapter 58 verse 11. The church is a watered garden. And that's where you go to practice godliness. The good works is done among the people of God. And the people of God is compared to a garden. And notice this. Why Ellen White herself? I didn't put this quote here, by the way. I'm leaving gap for you to research. Please, if you could study this more in depth, I would be so happy, friends. I'm just here somehow to let the Lord use me, that we can just get a sparkle. And once you get the sparkle, go in it for yourself. Because there's so much I have in my mind. I cannot share all of them, right? So, why is it that Ellen White herself says that the best type of exercise is the garden? Let's actually read it, one of it. This is only one of it. There's thousands, I can say I'm exaggerating. Okay, CT, what book is that again? Counsels to Teachers, I don't think that is. Yeah, so page 308. The greatest benefit is not gained from exercise that is taken as what? As play or mere. Or exercise merely. There is some benefit in being in the fresh air. Forget the treadmill. And also from the exercise of the muscles, but let the same amount of energy be given to the performance of useful work. And the benefit will be greater. A feeling of satisfaction will be realized, for such exercise carries with it a sense of helpfulness and the approval of conscience for duty well done. Now this is the type of exercise that God is saying, this is what I want for the body. Isn't that what he said he wants for the church too? Same exact thing. So even without Ellen White saying this, I could find it. In fact, do you know what it was for me? When I found all of that in mind, I was like, Lord, please give me a quote in Spirit Prophecy that goes with this. So it was not the opposite. I didn't find it in Spirit Prophecy and say, you know what? I got to find it in the Bible. No. When I started to ask the Lord and he showed me in the Bible, I said, Lord, I want a Spirit Prophecy quote. I know she's got to talk about this. And then I started to search. And here she don't even mention the word garden. She just mentioned useful work, which gives you a sense of duty accomplished. And I'm not condemning, by the way, every other type of exercise. You do what you can do where you can do it. Okay? You know, if I go to New York City right now and I'm doing an evangelistic series here, I might not find any garden to work with. Unless I just climb some 10 floors high. Some people have it on top of the building. Literally. So, but you do what you can do, right? However, the ideal is what we're looking at. God's ideal is useful work. Sometimes you need to walk. Take that walk. Walk is also said by Ellen White to be a good exercise. You take meditation work, walk. You could say like through nature, those are powerful ones. And you can still learn things as you go and all of that. So Ellen White is saying exercise must go beyond the form and outward appearance. It must affect the mind. Not affect the mind in the sense of you sweat, you detox. No, not physiologically, spiritually. That's what she's saying. That's how exercise must affect the mind. It's so powerful, friends. Now the thing about form. Oh, friends, there's a lot of stuff in this. Remember when God made man out of clay, not out of bodybuilding? No, God did bodybuilding with clay, right? Not with weight. The guy said, you know what? Instead of clay, we use the weight so we get the body exactly how we want it to be. Instead of Jesus, the church gets some other things to form the body, to get a right form. We do it. It's called righteousness by work. So here in Genesis, God forms the body, right? Do you think that there is a chance that Adam formed without the breath out of the nostrils of God probably looked more beautiful than most men on the world today? Even though alive and walking? I'm talking about the form itself. You think that's possible?
Yes.
It's possible. We're not going to go into it. But think of my point, right? So the form was there. As beautiful as it can be. Perfect out of the hand of the Creator. But it's dead because what's missing?
No life.
The breath of life. Was God happy with that man? Did God say it is done? Now you come to Acts. The people are fighting to get the church going. Acts chapter 1, 2, 3, you can read those. People are fighting to get the church going. They're focusing on gaining. You know? In the beginning. When the Spirit came, right before the Spirit and everything prepared and all of that, things were right, okay? I'm talking about before this, right? So you have the form there. Beautiful as it can be in the outward look. It was dead. And God says, if it is just the form, leave it alone. Turn away from it, in fact. So what was missing? What was missing?
The Holy Spirit.
If the church was a body, what was missing?
The breath.
The breath. You see the connection? Isn't the Spirit called the breath of God? The Spirit came in the form of what? Or at least the effects of the Spirit caused what we can say, just not to cause some trouble of understanding of who the Spirit is. I believe with all my heart that is a person. The wind, friends. When the wind came, that's when power took hold of that body. And that body now could walk and exercise efficiently. And one day Peter spoke and many got converted, thousands. You see the point? So this connection is everywhere. God is saying the form that you're looking for, if it is only focusing on form, it doesn't matter. If it's physical or spiritual, it's not my way. Turn away from those. Turn away from those. Do we think we have danger in the church of exercises that only put on a form, and then next thing you know, it leads us to wear a certain type of clothes so we can show those forms? You think that's possible? And it's right here in the Bible, the principle. I don't need no New York Times to prove this to you. As long as you're a Christian and you believe the Word of God and you're willing to listen, it's right here written. And even an enemy of God have no argument against this. Unless his heart is hard and you don't want to listen to it. As far as argument goes, right there. Principle is there. It's so powerful, friends. So watch this. Even they themselves, the mouth of the horse, right here. Medical daily. Some bodybuilders may even develop a distorted view of their bodies called muscle dysmorphia in their effort to become bigger and leaner according to the Body Dysmorphic Disorder Foundation. Individuals with muscle dysmorphia are preoccupied with not being sufficiently muscular or lean, and as a result will develop unhealthy behaviors such as spending excessive time in the gym, and all this. Anyway, so in other words, it is bad effect of bodybuilding. But same exactly, Paul said it in the spiritual. When you focus on gaining alone, there is bad effect of it. You know what happened, by the way? You know when you overweight a member, that you can lose that member, you can hurt that member? I don't know if you're getting the point. Are you getting what I'm trying to throw at you? When you overweight a member, you will lose that member. As Paul says, it's a mystery. I'm speaking spiritual. When you overweight a member with godliness, that's only a form, it becomes a burden and a yoke, and you will lose that member in the church. I'm speaking. You get the point? So all these principles, friend, how did I learn it? Just split the Word of God open. Just split the Word of God open. So why is this important again? My desire, friend. It's not that you're going to take these same exact verses and passages, which if you do, I do not mind at all. Just use it however God leads you to use it, to go and present it. That's not what I'm saying. My desire is that you may get the principle, and when you present about exercise, about breathing, about anything else, that Christ be in it. That's my main desire. Because I'm so tired, I'll say this, I'm saying this at YouTube fancy, but anyway, I'm so tired of medical missionary work that is outside of Christ. No, Christ has his way. The way he taught more than one thing at the same time. I told you guys about Matthew 24 last time. He taught two truths with one answer. Many places throughout the Bible, God does this. For example, when the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah happened, what did God say? Ensamples. Let's use it again. And the word ensamples does not mean examples. The word ensamples means typology. It means a type of something else. The body is a type of something else. That same structure is somewhere else. Friends, there's a lot I can tell you. Go do your own research, please. I'll be more than happy to hear and to see what you have, and then we may continue to study together. Next thing I would hope I can get to is Isaiah 58. Just to give you a little hint, Isaiah 68 is the chapter that Ellen White connects with the Third Angel's message, and she calls it a medical missionary manual. She says that everybody should study it. She says that people should memorize it. And the structure of Isaiah 58 is quite interesting, intriguing. It starts with the morning, and then you do more work. It turns into the midday, and then you do more work. You finish with rest. I wonder what can we get from there. You get the picture? It finishes with the Sabbath. And to the Jewish mind, Sabbath is not Saturday, it's rest. It talks about a light that keeps increasing, and then rest time. That light sets. Let's pray. We'll talk about that. Hopefully, we get to it. Any question before we get to it? Any question? Was there any point that was not clear? What time is it? I know we're over, probably a few minutes, right?
Yeah, 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay, praise the Lord. So any question, probably 1 minute per question. Any question, any point I could touch on to clarify right before we pray?
Just if I want to say one thing about bodybuilding. It's not, you can work out for like 3-4 months, usually you don't see the results. You have to add something into it for you to see the results. Working in the garden, you work 3 months, you see the results right away. Then you see plants growing, you see fruits coming, but not bodybuilding. So the type of exercise compared to bodybuilding with work in the garden is amazing. Because I know what bodybuilding is.
I'm sure you do.
Or better than somebody else.
Isn't that amazing?
I add to that too, because I was thinking about what you're saying. I remember my grand uncles and cousins back in Jamaica who are farmers. Sometimes we have this misconception that they don't look fit, but they actually look fit.
They have strength.
They have strength. Those old men, my grand uncles, they don't look flimsy. So I guess because we have not seen farmers in the right physique, we believe that we have to, as I said, take all those protein things to actually have the build. But if we're actually, doing the right farming or whatever, we have a decent body, because they look good for their age and they're old people and they're fit.
It's true. And plus, those people with that body build, they get so happy. You get them to run with a farmer, they probably would die. Literally. They can run.
Yeah.
I'm talking about bodybuilders, not weightlifters. These are different. There are people that weightlift, they have some healthy muscles, whatever, right? And that's maybe another topic. But I'm talking about bodybuilders, those that build to look like this. You know? They cannot really run. They don't train themselves for those things. They just train themselves to have a look. And that's what we do in the church sometimes. We get all these protein shakes of different methods of evangelism just to get our church to look big and get a bunch of reputation. God said, that's only form of godliness. I don't need it. Does God like big amount of people to go to heaven? Yes. But he's not going to take anybody to heaven that's not going to like heaven. So we ought to evangelize the right way and build the members. All right, let's pray. Father, thank you so much because your word is so profound, Lord. At the same time, so simple when we come to it, Lord. It is a fountain, a source that can never be exhausted. And Lord, we thank you for your Holy Spirit because he is so willing to show us amazing truths in his word. Lord, continue to be with your children here, that together we may grow and that we may learn more and more in your word, O Lord, that daily, Father, we may come closer and closer to you, even while teaching simple things as proper nutrition and proper exercise, that we may see Jesus in it, Father. Thank you so much for answering our prayers. In Jesus' name, amen.